I just found out 9 reasons why no one warns women about menopause before now. I've been doing some research and it's so hard to believe or imagine, but here are the facts. Let me know in the comments below which of those facts was the most shocking to you. This is Menopause History 101. It's unbelievable. First was a woman's life expectancy, or should I say lifespan. It's estimated that in ancient Greece, specifically in the Dark Ages, which is about 750 BC, at least 50% of women died by the age of 34, and the remaining 50% were gone not too long after that. So that goes without saying that most women were still in their reproductive years as the time at which they died. Not too many of them lived long enough to experience menopause. That's a possibility. The second reason revolves around the perceived value of a woman. So it turns out that back in the day, the ancients believed that women were inferior to men and that a woman's value was based on fertility. So menopausal women were not the focus of much literature or study, and I will come back to this towards the end of this video and talk about what's happening today. Now, third was medical doctors' perception of menopause. So over the next 300 years, attitudes shifted and medical doctors began to view this phase of life as a disease. As a result, they came up with strange and even dangerous therapies to treat menopause. The fourth reason is that there was a major shift in the medical doctors' view about women's reproductive health and menopause. During the Victorian Era, that was between 1837 and 1901, doctors thought that a woman's ovaries were responsible for everything that made a woman feminine. And so it follows that if the ovaries were diseased or stopped functioning, as they do in menopause, then a woman was not of sound mind. Doctors believed that there was a link between a woman's ovaries and her brain, and this led to insanity. As a result, they believed the only logical treatment was to lock up these women in asylums. I was screaming out loud, by the time I read this. So if I had lived at that time and I knew that things had begun to change in my mind, my emotions, and my body, like they do in perimenopause, that means I would have had to pretend, that everything was fine. Otherwise, if anyone knew or heard, I would most likely be picked up, by an ambulance in the middle of the night, strapped to a stretcher or forced into a straitjacket and taken to a mental health facility. And those institutions, at that time, were the darkest places to be. All sorts of inhumane experiments were going on behind closed doors. People didn't go to asylums then, to be rehabilitated and returned to society. They were locked up for life and they became property of the state. They were highly medicated, like we see in some of these old movies. I even went and checked up the meaning of the word asylum, and it means an inviolable place of refuge and protection, giving shelter to criminals and debtors. The fifth reason has to do with doctors and the idea of surgery. When we're in menopause, we're fatigued, so we seem lazy. Our emotions are running riot, so we are angry or we're snapping. We speak up about stuff that we may have been managing, before now. We start seeing people around you, as they really are, because I, for one, personally testify to the fact that thanks to perimenopause, my eyes have really opened and I'm beginning to see things from a different perspective now, and I now see people around me as they really are. And let me tell you, it can go either ways. Someone can either look maybe better than they were before, or they can look right down mean, and evil. I will share some personal experiences with you about what my eyes have seen in perimenopause, but now is not the time. So back to these wonderful doctors. The solution they created next was to remove ovaries from hundreds of women, assuming that this surgery will make women more compliant, docile, and harder working. I can't believe it. They felt the operation was necessary to cure mental disorders, including nymphomania and hysteria. Let's digress into nymphomania briefly. Because women were expected to be motherly, any sign of sexual desire from a woman at that time was thought to be a sign of insanity. I read that one surgeon in London at that time went as far as to recommend a clitoridectomy, which is the surgical removal of the clitoris, which we now know today to be female circumcision. Women have suffered. And 6 is hormone replacement therapy. Finally, by the end of this century, the theory that menopause was related to hormones began to take hold. Now, for reason number 7, I'm going to bring this back home, looking at 1903 and even up to now in some parts of Africa. A woman's femininity is seen as her ability to bear children. That's what gives her value. So once she stops getting a cycle, some cultures refer to, a menopausal woman as a woman who has become like a man. Quite derogatory if you ask me. It's around this time that mothers in the village will cut off their beautiful long hair and start sitting by the fire to warm themselves up from, the chills that come with menopause. It's also around this time that her husband will take another wife, a younger wife. And so we can't really blame them for keeping silent. Why would I go and make noise about something, at the end of the day, which will end up with my husband taking another wife and then I have to share him? Let me know in the comments if this is something that you've observed, in your culture before now. Women have had a really rough time. My heart goes out to them. As in, no wonder, I now know why they were quiet. So 8 is lack of adequate research. Not enough data, to help women identify what's happening with them. And then their mothers also didn't tell them because it had to be kept a top secret at the time. The 9th and the final reason is medical school curriculum. Looking at the medical school curriculum, apparently only one day is spent talking about menopause related issues. So all of this brings us to today, and these are some of the reasons why no one warned us about menopause. Here's a shout out to our aunts, our mothers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, who have gone through so much suffering before now, based on menopause. You are the real MVPs. You have truly suffered. We give you our word that we will break the silence. We will spread the word. We will change the narrative. We're standing on your shoulders. Here's a big hug from all of us. We love you. For more on the menopause experience, watch this video and many more coming to you from my channel. Take good care of yourself. Don't forget to be your sister's keeper. I'll see you soon.